Okay, take two because it's Monday, right? It's Monday. This is how Mondays are. Mondays before holidays. It is Hanukkah, the first day of Hanukkah, and we are chatting with Yobi K. Very excited to partner. Okay, let's try this again. Hi, in Bloom. How are you guys? Nice to see you guys here. Gonna see y'all in Sedona. Woo! Make this magic happen. See if Monday is on our side.
Yay, I made it.
Looking good. it's it's already one of those
Oh
days,
my
right?
gosh,
It's Monday.
absolutely. Yeah, this past week I feel like I should get a medal for surviving. How about you?
I wrote an email this morning and the person replied and was like, that made no sense. And I was like, yes, you're right. Why did I bother writing emails today when my brain has clearly shut down already? So my heat went out this morning. You know, New York City, these things happen. And I was thinking a hot yoga class today would
So
feel
good. Yes.
amazing.
I feel like a lot of our students end up coming to us on days that their heat breaks or they don't have hot water and they know that we're going to have those things at the studio. It's like more than taking class, it's just basic human maintenance and basic needs in the winter time for sure.
Yeah, and in New York, especially New York City and Brooklyn, that happens quite often. I mean, it's not uncommon for my heat to go out, the hot water to go out. These things happen more regularly than I would prefer, quite honestly. But it's good to know that our local yoga studio is always running
Yes,
and warm.
absolutely. You know, the nice thing at our studios is that we use infrared heat, so it's electrical rather than gas, and that seems to help a lot, especially in old buildings, which most buildings are.
Yeah, yeah. So how long have you been in the location you're in now? Because you have actually
Correct.
three locations total,
We opened
right?
in 2015 at our Williamsburg location, which is on Broadway in Kent, right by the water. And it was just this
Mhm.
beautiful, like sunny studio. I did a lot of the build out myself. Um, about 3 years after that, we expanded to Greenpoint, which is quite a large studio space. We have a big upstairs room, and we also have a basement room where we do a lot of workshops and teacher trainings, and we take care of some of the overflow from busy classes in the morning and at nighttime. Um, and this year,
Yeah.
we opened in Miami in February of 2022, which was a big leap and a very different market, but it's been a fun challenge.
So why did you choose Miami? I mean, Miami's amazing. Why wouldn't you choose Miami? But what was the decision? I mean, there is a huge relationship, I think, between New York and Miami. It's kind of like our backyard, essentially. But what
So
made you
a few
decide on
things.
Miami?
When I decided I wanted to open a studio, I had an amazing mentor, and I was living in Texas at the time, which is where I
Mm,
went to college. I'm from New York originally, and the first
mm,
thing that my mentor had me do was choose 5 different cities and then narrow them down to two, where there was a need for the type of
yeah.
yoga that we were offering. Where the studio could potentially be successful. And the two places I narrowed it down to were Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and Wynwood, Miami. Um, and I ended up living in Miami
Yeah.
for about 6 months and realizing that just
Mm,
the way that the city worked, that I was not equipped to open a studio
mm,
there at that point in time. It's a city that's
right.
way more intense in terms of regulations, permitting, architecture, build outs,
Oh, wow.
which sounds weird, but it's not
Yeah.
logistically as challenging to open a business in New York. Yeah,
I'm shocked to hear that. Quite honestly, I thought New York was the hardest to do and the
it
most expensive, quite
it
honestly,
is
to do
very
just about
expensive, but
anything.
it's also, the yoga industry is so interesting because we haven't quite been regulated in the way that restaurants or even like massage parlors have been regulated. So, between signing my lease in Williamsburg
Mm,
and opening, it was only about 60 days. Yeah.
wow.
Whereas Miami, we had
That's
we had 10
surprising.
months
Yeah.
between signing our lease and opening. totally
And
normal.
that's
Like we
normal.
actually did well. Um, but anyways, to continue
Wow.
the why Miami story, one of one of
Yeah.
my dear friends who I met as a student in Williamsburg, and who helped me expand to Greenpoint and actually introduced me to my husband, who is the general contractor at the Greenpoint expansion. He ended up moving to Miami pre-pandemic. He had young babies and decided that he wanted that type of lifestyle for them. His wife had family in Miami, and he said, you know, I really don't want to live there without your studio. And so we started looking at spaces and what it evolved into, because he became my partner and he was a restaurateur in New York. Um, we
Right.
we started looking for spaces that could be both a cafe and a yoga studio as well. And started thinking about like
Right,
how
right.
could these
Smart.
be synchronistic in a way that goes beyond like, you know, a yoga studio that happens to have a juice bar or, you know, a blender to make smoothies. And we ended up with this huge space that has an all day cafe with indoor and outdoor space, a place that people really come to and bring their laptops and stay all day. And they can come and take a class
Yeah.
during that time. But basically, I told him when we were looking at spaces, if you find me the impossible deal and the most amazing space, I will say yes. Otherwise, this is not something I need. And he found that space.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That is amazing. So he runs the Miami
Um,
studio essentially. Because I was going to say, I mean, as a business owner, you can't be in three places at once. I mean, one business is challenging, three is
Yeah, I really
monumental.
try to be in three places at once, and I fail over and over again. That's kind of the story
Right.
of my life and the stupid mistake I keep making.
Yeah.
I have really amazing teams set up at all three locations. I have a full-time manager in Miami who runs the show. I have a really robust sales team. I believe our sales manager Haley is watching right now. We have a general manager in New York. We have a pretty much full-time staff that is at the studio to greet students, to support our team, to make sure that it's warm and welcoming. And it did take a really long time to get to that place. You know, when we first opened, I was teaching 18 classes a week, and I was the manager, I was the cleaning crew, I was the janitor. So it's been really cool to
Yeah.
see how just people coming in the door over and over again can not just change their lives, but it can change the way that a business runs.
And I mean, it's just, I'm just so amazed with any small studio, like any small business owner, a yoga studio, and you survived the pandemic. I mean, you made it through that, and that is unbelievable to me.
Oh
What was
my
that like
gosh.
for you
So
guys?
we were actually in our first 200-hour teacher training during the pandemic. And we had 18 teacher trainees, and we were kind of in this bubble in our Greenpoint studio where like we were so saturated with the study of yoga and just the process of training these amazing new teachers that like I wasn't even reading the news or paying attention to what was going on. And
Yeah.
I think it was the weekend of like March 15th, which is my brother's birthday. And one of the trainees came in and she said, hey, you know, I'm really not comfortable coming into this space. Like, can you offer something online? And we kind of took a vote as a teacher training, like, do we want to move fully remote or do we want to stay in person? I went home
Right.
that night. I had a conversation with my husband. He said, you know, I have an elderly mom. I would prefer if you actually shut the studio. So we ended up closing our
Right.
doors 2 days before the government mandate. I remember sitting in my old apartment going through Mindbody, which is like the software system that all yoga studios for the most part use. And I canceled 80 classes, like one after the other, after the other, after the
Oh,
other. And every time you cancel a class, it's like, is this a permanent cancellation? And you have to say, yes, it's a permanent cancellation. And so, like, sitting at my computer
oh,
sobbing. The next,
right.
I know, it's just
Oh my
like,
goodness.
oh my God. The next day, we went live on Instagram and did that for the first couple of weeks, just like offering classes because everyone was just in this state of confusion and shock. And I think that the area where we are in Brooklyn, It's primarily young professionals in their late 20s, early 30s. A lot of them are single. A lot of them are not originally from New York. And so it just felt even more important than otherwise to provide outlets, to provide a little bit of movement, because, you know, in those early days, it was like you're scared to go outside of your apartment into the hallway. You're scared to do laundry. You're scared to go to the bodega to get food. Like all of the grocery stores were out of toilet paper. It was like very, very different from how it is now, and even how it was a year ago. But we started offering online classes like right away. We figured out how to price them. We got a pretty good system in place. And then in July of 2020, my husband's like brilliant with this stuff, and I'm so lucky that I had him throughout the pandemic. He said, you know, there are probably a lot of great venues where you could do outdoor classes, and they'd probably be really happy to have you. So we ended up offering 30 outdoor classes a week in that first summer.
That's
we did parks, we did wedding venues, we did hotels. We're still teaching every summer at one of the hotels because it's just absolutely stunning. And I think we just kept moving pretty fast. Like I still tell my friends that I haven't really paused since the pandemic started, because it was just like, okay, there's a lot of stuff we can't do, but what can we do? What is possible? What is available? What is something that people want? And our students loved those outdoor classes because it was the only time they would leave their house for the whole day.
And be with each other, I'm sure, and be in community, which was one of the things, you know. And especially, it's really interesting that you said that about the neighborhoods, because it's true. If you didn't have, I was lucky my mom wasn't too far. I grew up in the city, and my grandmother, so I had that, but everything else was shut down. I couldn't see my friends, I couldn't see anyone. But, you know, just building and being in the community that they had there, which was your studio and your, you know, your team, that was so important at that time. And you kind of answered my question a little bit, but one of the things I always like to ask people is, what was the thing, if there was like a person or a mantra or a practice when it got so challenging that you're like, I don't know if I can keep doing this? What was that thing that either you went to, you reminded yourself of, that just kind of got you over that hurdle? Because there were quite a few.
For me, it's always like, how can I be of service to others? I feel like I am so privileged in the way that I was raised and the opportunities that I've had. And it's always come back to like, I have to keep providing for my staff. I have to keep providing for my students. And so when I open a studio, there's no other option than to figure out how to make it work. And that's like a different mindset than a lot of businesses, than a lot of restaurant owners or store owners are in. But, you know, our students need us. It's a really fundamental part of their day to come in and disconnect. And like, we have a very strict no cell phones policy across our locations. And it's like, just take an hour of your day without your phone to come and breathe. It's so much, which to me is so much more profound than like anything that actually happens in those rooms. Like, yes, we want it to be challenging. We want it to be fun. We want it to be mindful and safe. But like, to me, the thing I keep coming back to is that we all need that time to disconnect. And unless it's scheduled and we're paying for it, we're probably never going to do it.
Which is funny and sad and true.
I see it time and again. And like, even myself, when I would take those online classes, like, so much power to anyone who has the discipline to take an online class and really take it. But as soon as we got into pigeon pose, I'd be like reaching for my phone and checking Instagram, and I wouldn't even know how I got there, or like how those urges worked. So I'm just really glad that we can keep serving and that we could even expand during the pandemic.
I mean, it's I want to say it's unbelievable, but it's truly amazing that you did it. And that are you gonna continue to expand? Or are there plans to go somewhere else? I mean, it sounds like you had a great mentor, which in any business is just gold. That's such a great thing to have. Was there any other plans to expand?
You know,
three is the magic number.
I was so happy with one. I was so happy with two. I'm so happy with three. I mean, I think that every time you open a new business, and I opened 3 this year. We opened the studio, we opened the cafe in Miami, and then my husband, our business partner, and I, we also opened an omakase restaurant this year in Greenpoint. So it's just been like a huge year of unsettling and unraveling. And the way that I see the scope of this is like you create this huge disruption by opening a new space. You have to figure out all the pieces and all the systems and all of the logistics, and then the softer skills of, you know, what's happening here culturally and how can we make things more efficient, and then the dust settles and you get to enjoy it for a little while. So right now I'm enjoying it.
Right. And well deserved that you enjoy it, and maybe taking a little bit of rest.
For sure.
Perhaps. No. There was such a pause.
No,
there.
I'm just I'm laughing because I have an amazing 11-year-old stepson. So it's like my rest time is with him, and working in a different way, in a way that is fulfilling in a different way and totally unpaid. And but no, we do have some great trips coming up this year, and many of them are not work related.
Oh, well, I was going to say, actually, what is some of the things that are coming up with any of your studios, retreats, teacher trainings, workshops that you're super excited about?
So Sherry, who you know, and I are co-leading. Sherry's amazing. Like, Sherry is one of the best pandemic gifts. And I think that we all spent so much time talking about, like, this is what the pandemic robbed from me, and this is how it, you know, negatively affected my life. And there were actually some really great things that happened during the pandemic. And I would say the best thing for me was, like, it was a necessary shift of the team. Like, it kind of forced people to get really clear on, like, what do I actually want? Is this serving me? Is this who I want to be working with in the capacity I want to be working? So I feel like a lot of relationships that had become stagnant kind of filtered themselves out and created space for the new. And you know, I took a teacher training with Sherry about 5 years ago at the old Laughing Lotus studio, and I was like, I want to work with her so badly. I was just like in awe of this dazzling, sparkling woman, and the fact that now we get to co-lead 200-hour teacher trainings together is really, really incredible. So we have that coming up in January. It's a weekend teacher training, very much designed around a 9-to-5 lifestyle. Really excited for that. We have some continuing education that's coming up for yoga teachers, which I feel is kind of a void in the yoga room, in the yoga world right now, especially in person. That, you know, say you are 200 hours certified and you want to learn more about hands-on assists, or you want to learn advanced anatomy, or you know, some of the mythology that goes into these yoga postures, that we're really set on creating a framework for that. And then also we have a retreat in Greece coming up in June. We booked this amazing retreat space on an island, and it's super hard to get to, and that's why it's beautiful and amazing. And so we're really so excited for that.
I love that too. It's like, you have to relax now. You should just cut off all Wi-Fi. So when they go to this retreat, hand in your phones. You're going to relax. You're going to have a great time. That sounds like amazing stuff. And I always wonder how people also choose, not just like where they choose to run the retreat, but where they choose to run their retreats. I mean, you could literally go anywhere. Thank goodness now we can go anywhere in the world. So Greece, there had to be something about Greece specifically that you were drawn to.
I think what we were drawn to with Greece, I'm co-leading this with Sherry as well. You know, we both have a really strong foundation in mythology. Sherry with Hindu mythology, so she spent many years studying it. She's led trainings on it as well in the past. And I was a classical studies major. And so when we realized that Greece was on the table, we're like, we could really nerd out with this retreat, and we could really tie it into, like, you know, how do myths relate to where we are. You know, there's a huge link between Hindu mythology and Greek mythology, that'll be really fun to kind of tease out and bring into the classes.
That sounds amazing. and that's very unique. I haven't heard of any retreat doing something like that, and I love that you are incorporating where you're going to be. So it's not just, hey, Greece is pretty, which it is, and there's good food, but you're really tying into the space and just the energy that's going to be there, which is going to be
Yeah, and
so
the other
beautiful.
thing with retreat, like we've done a few retreats in the Caribbean. We did Nicaragua, we did the Dominican Republic. Um, and I like the idea of taking people somewhere they might not go otherwise, or they might not go on their own. You know, that creates more of a
Yeah.
sense of adventure, and perhaps will attract more serious practitioners. You know, it's a big deal to go that far away.
Yeah, it definitely is. Kate, thank you so much for chatting with me today and for supporting our next issue. It's only, I mean, I can't say this enough. It's only other businesses
Mhm.
that is the reason we are in business, because you guys all support us and help us get a print
It's
magazine out
beautiful.
like this one,
Yeah,
which I think we sent you guys
we've got a
for
few of
your
those.
for one of your studios. Yeah. And it's the same thing, like you said with the studio, you know, just taking that moment to stop and hold something that's print in your hands and just hopefully pause and disconnect. That was my original intention with the magazine. I was like, I could do it
No,
online.
no,
Everyone's like,
no
do it
more
digital. I'm like,
online,
yeah,
please.
that's
Like
great.
I buy my books hardcover.
Yeah. And people like you are the reason we're still in business, because we all feel the same way about just taking that moment and hopefully shutting off all the devices, taking a class, having your tea, you know, spending time with people. And we thank you so much for that and look forward to partnering with you guys
Absolutely.
again in the future. So if you haven't checked out their 3 locations, there's no reason you shouldn't. We'll have this on our website, and I'll send you guys a link as well.
Thank
And
you.
thank you so
You
much, and have a
too.
great holiday.
You too. Bye.
Take care, Kate. Bye.